Hello. Today we're going to look at one of the other projects that we did out of our booth at our last show. This is using what I call my vintage white technique. This is stamping on Kraft paper with black ink and using color pencils to highlight. I began teaching this back in 2011. In 2012, it was the hottest class I had. In 2014, Rubber Stamp Madness did a 3-page feature article on it. And over the years, I've realized that people like it so much that I've actually used it more and more and done more and more with it. Anyway, we're gonna do this. We're gonna start. I don't know if I put this here, you probably can kind of see where we're going while we go there. Yeah, I think you can see all of this now. Okay, so when we're doing a composition like this, we're going to mask. And this video is not a tutorial on masking. There are other ones that I do on that. So we're not going to go into a lot of detail, but in a nutshell, masking allows you to tuck a second object behind a first object. And in a nutshell, you work from your foreground back. Now we'll explore that a little bit more. This is the wolves, and I'm going to stamp it first because what we're going to do is we're going to then mask the wolves, and we're going to tuck our Windfall image behind the wolves. We tested all of our black inks on our Kraft paper, and we found that they weren't all equal. Now today I'm using Memories Black. We're going to put that mask on, and then we're going to tuck the Windfall, which is this image of course, behind our wolves. So I'm going to ink that up. And I'm going to position it so that it's all the way over here. And again, I'm going to press firmly. I'm not going to rock. I'm just pressing straight down. And I always hold my block with one hand while I walk my thumb around with the other. And there we have it. Now, you could mask to do some of the other details, and I may do a little masking on the foreground later, but for the most part, everything else I did on this scene I was able to do without masking. So we're using our big leafy, I think it's called Leafy Oak. It's one of our new images. And it's a branch like this that was designed to hang over into your scene. You can hang the little girl swinging from it. You can use it just to kind of frame out your scenes. Bold foreground images help to frame out your scenes. They help to give it perspective. They help to draw the viewer in. So I'm going to ink this up. Now see how we've got it coming over like this. I'm using it almost like a tree. I'm going to position it like this. And we're going to, again, press very hard. The larger and the more detailed the images are, the more important it is to press firmly, without rocking, of course. Okay. Now I'm going to use the same image. I'm going to use the same image, but I'm only going to use the top part. And I'm gonna put it like here, so it looks like there's like a little bush or something here in the front. See, look at that. Kind of fills it in, makes it look like there's a lot of trees and bushes around. I'm still using the same image. I'm re-inking again. And I'm going to come in this time here. Probably about like that. And then I did some more down here using the same image. The concept here is that the mother wolf with her young are kind of hiding back here in the bushes and the weeds. Okay. Now we could bring some more around here, but instead what we did do is we used, in some of the scenes I used cattails, and some I used grasses. Let's see, let's get some cattails going on here. Now this is our prairie grass. This can also be used. And if we wanted to, this is kind of fun too. If we wanted to, we could mask this. I've got the wolf's head sticking up here. Where's my wolf mask? I may want this down just a little bit more, especially since we're putting multiple masks on, stacking the layers of paper. But it's kind of fun to have some of the foliage sticking up over the Windfall too. So we can come in through here, and we can add some grass. And I think I want a little bit of grass over here, peeking through the... See, we've got that grass kicking up. I think that adds quite a bit. And, you know, it's like, okay, so when do we stop? Well, we stop whenever you want to stop. These are birds. I think I'm going to throw some birds in the sky. And I think we're going to call that a composition. It's a little bit different than the last time I did it. Last time I used some sparse grass, and I actually like the sparse grass. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim back my mask here a little bit. Trimming back my wolf mask here on the bottom. See, I'm taking this out, and I'm going to put this right here, so that I can nudge a little bit of the ground pattern in there as well. So we're just gonna kind of drop that in here. Gives a little bit of texture. I'm not sure if you can see that or not. And that's actually pretty good, I think. So that's how we built the composition. Now, when you're doing the vintage white technique, I use a black Prismacolor pencil and a white Prismacolor pencil. My black one seems to have taken a hike. That's okay. My black ink is dark enough that I don't think I probably have to have the black today. Now, to do this effectively, you probably ought to keep a pencil sharpener on your table, because you're going to want to freshen that point from time to time. What you need to remember is this technique is all about highlighting. You need to remember that not all shades of white are equal, that you can do, let me see if I can show you this. You can start out with your white, and you can do very, very pale. When you do this, you're actually allowing some of the Kraft card color to show through. If you build up that saturation, it becomes whiter and whiter. And if you build it up even more, it becomes whiter and more opaque. Now, I hope you can see this. My camera doesn't always pick up subtleties, so I'm going to try to bring this up a little closer. We've got a pretty opaque, pretty bright white here, a little less yet, and only just a hint. To really make this technique effective, you actually want to use lots of different values, lots of different intensities of your white. And you either need to go back and reclaim your blacks, or you need to not cover them up in the first place. So I tend to start out with a very, very light touch. And because I have a pretty sharp point, I can actually, get into some of these little details. And I tend to try to avoid covering up my black. But if I do cover it up, I can always go back and kind of reclaim that dark value. And if I cover a little bit of the black up, it becomes a gray. And then we have multiple values of the black. We have the original black, and then we have, what's a little bit more gray. So, we're starting to highlight here. We're starting to see some rendering of this log. I'm going to come over here to this log. And I'm going to try to avoid. Now, you can't see this on the video, and you might not even be able to see it if you're sitting here beside me, but I am just barely touching the paper. I can always build it up later. I tell my students that you want to avoid bruising the paper. You don't want to bruise the surface of your paper. A lot of times I'll go through the whole scene and I'll do it like this, and then I'll go back later and I will brighten by layering on the saturation of the color pencil. I will brighten things later. Now, what's interesting about this technique is you don't always worry about a light source or something like that, like you would with a more colorful technique. Sometimes it's hard for me to talk while I color. Sometimes it's easy. When you're working on an animal, the fur is going to be a little bit challenging, but I try to take my strokes and I try to go the same direction as the fur. And once again, I am just barely touching the surface of the paper. Now here, where there would be a little more of a highlight on the baby wolf, I'm going to do it a little different and try to build up a little more saturation. I'm doing some dots, I'm doing some lines. But usually I try to keep my pencil strokes as light as possible and going the same direction as the fur. The detail is so fine that you can't really avoid going over the black, but I absolutely want to avoid covering it all up, and I want to avoid covering up all of the Kraft. I want to let some of that Kraft show through so that it doesn't disappear. So we have the light area down here, got the light area here. And you can tell with some of this really fine detail, you can tell why it's important to have a pencil sharpener around so that when you need to, you can freshen your point. Okay, that's not bad. Like I said, I can always go back and I can always darken it later. So here we're going to go to the mama, and again, my pencil strokes are mimicking the direction of her fur. I am going over some of the black detail. There's really no way to avoid it, but I absolutely don't want to allow it to be lost. I don't want to allow it to be covered up. And a lot of you probably noticed when I was doing this, I try to avoid creating defined lines. I'm trying to create tone. And if you have a really, really light touch, you can do this. We are just highlighting. Come over and catch the other ear. Come down here on the head. Now there are areas where we could actually darken this up even if it wasn't part of the original drawing. Let me get a black pencil. Okay, so I'm back with a black pencil out of one of our other sets. We have lots of sets of pencils for classes. I'm going to come in here because I want to have this area right here. I don't want to lose it. And I'm just darkening it, and I can already see the difference. And I'm going to do just a little bit here. I'm doing mostly dots. I just want to darken that, deepen it just a little bit. I don't want to lose that. I don't know how well you can see what I'm doing. It's amazing how such a tiny amount does so much. Just a few little dots just pops it out. Same for right here. We're going to kind of do some little dashes and maybe a few dots. Then we're going to come back and make sure we have enough white there. Again, I'm trying to mimic the direction that the hair is laying. I'm going to come back. I'm going to add just a little bit of the black. Not too much. A few little dots, a few little dashes. Okay. Do you see the wolf taking shape? Literally taking shape. I hope so. I know that I've struggled with the settings on the camera to get the right resolution and the right brightness and what have you, and many times the subtleties don't come through in the videos the way I wish they would. But I think we're making progress. I think we're learning how to use the tools we have a little bit better too. Alright, so Mama's not bad. Junior here isn't too bad. Let's see if we need to hit a little bit of black on Junior. If you get too much, it'll look odd, so you want to avoid getting too much. Mama's paw here. And let's have a little more black here on, there we go. That's not looking too bad. Let's see, we've got another little baby over here. And let's deepen the value under its chin. Okay. My white's beginning to get a little bit dull. I'm going to add a little bit here. You know, like on the fern here, you can add a little bit of white here. And you probably notice how I turn the paper. I like my stroke to be comfortable no matter what. And so I don't try to combobulate my arm. I actually move the paper. That is generally a good practice regardless of whether you're using pencils or ink or something else. You're going to do your best work if you are loose and relaxed and comfortable. So there our wolf and everything is just kind of popping right out of the brush here. Now you can keep going on this. Let's see if you can see both these. Yeah, there you go. I think you can see them both. If you want to take time, and this gets a little tedious, you'll notice that I actually did put a little bit of white in the bark of the tree here and over here, and I don't have that here. Because of that, this is all looking a little bit flatter than it does over here. Because we don't want to lose our darks, this is a little bit tedious. It just takes time. And I don't want my videos to feel like you're watching paint dry, so I don't want to carry on and on like that. So hopefully today you've learned a little bit about what I call the vintage white technique. Like I said many times, I'll set this aside. I'll come back later and there'll be areas that I believe need a little more brightness, and I'll go back and I'll add some more white to increase the opacity and the saturation on the surface of the page. This is a great, the Windfall is such a great image. You know, here I've used it with the mountain, and I've tried to make this look a little swampier. Here I've used it with the bear. This one isn't mounted up. On the Making a Scene Rubber Stampers Facebook group, Char Reynolds recently posted a lovely scene that uses the Windfall and a raccoon. So the Windfall is one of our newer images, and it is ridiculously easy to use and really creates a nice element in your compositions. So thank you for joining me today. I hope you enjoy this. I hope you learned a few things. This is Tanya with Peddlers Den signing off for the day. Bye now.